Hello everybody, Adrian Plass here,
Yes, and Bridget, hello.
and it's number 248 in Sounding the Shallows.
Yeah, it is.
So,
Yes, and yet again, I mean, as I said last week, when is there ever going to be a week when there isn't all sorts of things swirling around the world? And there is, and I don't think we're going to talk about that right at the moment.
no,
are
let's
we?
leave it just for once, let's leave it, but it's always on-off stuff is very difficult to handle, isn't it?
Yeah, so we'll just share a couple of emails, I think, to start off with. And the first one, and there's been one or two on this. We were talking about sometimes there are really tiny, inexplicable moments that were very important at the time and have remained in our memories really, really clearly. And I don't know, we even suggested with one of them that the one where we had a horrendous accident on the M25 with a lorry. You know, foreign lorries didn't actually have to have a mirror that showed cars coming up on their inside, and it actually cut the very back of us as it tried to overtake us, turned us round, spun us up the M25, and then came to a halt sort of in the middle of the motorway. And I don't know if you remember us saying, but the extraordinary thing was there were two people standing on the hard shoulder. Why and how could they have been there, beckoning us to get out of the car? And with our dog, everything was wrecked in the car, do you remember, except for us and the dog.
Yeah.
And we took her over the road, and we never knew who they were, why they were there.
Don't know who they were, no. Strange, yeah.
And then we had so one of the emails we had connected with that came from Australia, didn't it? And it was somebody, I loved the fact that she was listening at 1:13 a.m, listening to us talking about the axolotl. And she was in the middle of refixing an old painting that she'd bought about 20 years ago. And when we were talking about this, it triggered off a memory of something else that had happened about 20 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, 20 years ago, she says, it's one of the richest little things I've ever experienced. It also happened about 20 years ago. She said, it was so special to me, I hold it like a treasure in my heart. And I've rarely mentioned it to anyone because, well, sometimes words just can't effectively convey the gift of certain moments. Anyway, it said it really was a little thing, no more than 6 words somebody said. But obviously it was special enough for her to remember exactly what it was. And she was into all sorts of problems with marriage and emotionally pounded and all sorts of things.
She was really trying hard,
trying to be a good
mum
mum to her two boys.
They were only little, weren't they?
4 and
6, yeah.
She didn't have a license, so she had to take a bus to most places. And on this particular day, they were on a 30-minute ride to a shopping centre. And as usual, they were sitting towards the front of the bus. And she doesn't remember anything about their interactions with each other, they were just being them. And I remember, oddly, there was no one else on the bus that day. Not one other person got on, which is very unusual for the route. Anyway, as we were stepping off the bus, we thanked the driver, as always, and he made a point of catching my eye, looked right at me and said, "You're doing a good job there." And I know he was talking about my boys, and I had to choke back the tears that instantly welled. I don't think I managed to respond with anything more than a nod and a broken smile. And she says, I so needed that. And it's a kind of sustained me in lots of times of darkness and doubt. And it was obviously a wonderful, wonderful moment.
A wonderful moment.
Yeah.
And she said she wondered if the driver was an angel in disguise. But it made me think, you know, that one of the things she mentions is he looked me in the eye. He focused on her. And he said that. And, you know, we can bob about being angels in disguise. Well, not really. But you know what I mean? There are moments where we maybe could say something like that, especially with mums struggling with children. I remember I had a double buggy, quite a battered buggy with our 2 younger sons. And getting on the bus was a nightmare because you had to get them out of the double buggy, fold the double buggy, get one of them up on the bus, then the other one up on the bus, then the buggy. the stress involved was such awful. And if the bus driver glared at me and tutted and obviously felt that they were going to be late on their bus schedule, it almost broke me in bits. And if somebody smiled at me, somebody on the bus or the bus, it did make a crazy amount of difference, really.
Yeah.
So I understood that
It
on all
can be
sorts
so
of
small,
levels.
can't it? I was just thinking about the bus driver. I mean, I think we were talking a while ago about that phrase, his heart went out to her in somewhere. And sometimes when you give a little tiny bit of your heart to someone, it makes a huge difference, because you can see they're not just looking at you and thinking the normal things. They're wanting to give you something, and it's a wonderful thing. And it's so cheap in terms of money, time,
absolutely.
effort, and so worthwhile. It really,
But sometimes
really is.
it is just that you haven't quite got the courage to do it, or you haven't quite got the... But anyway. Well, the other one... Well, there were several emails, but the other one really made us laugh, which was quite a good thing at the moment, I think. I mean, it's so fraught at the moment, isn't it, in the world?
Really
It's just fraught. And I think that fraughtness goes into all of us. Everyone seems pretty tense at the moment, and maybe needing to laugh. I mean, even the weather seems to be against us. One minute it's sunny, then it's freezing cold. We had a bit of snow today.
Yeah.
And somebody said to me, I know what that feels like when the traffic lights are always red, and sometimes it feels as though even the traffic lights are against you.
All right, just quickly before we read this, but for anyone who's interested in crosswords, I had a clue the other day which said romantic period novel about the failure of a traffic light.
Dysfunctional traffic lights.
Took me ages to think what it was, and I saw some people already thinking what it was, and the answer was 2 words. It was Forever Amber. I thought that was quite clever. Anyway,
Very clever. Very clever.
So this was what this friend of ours sent to us. So someone wants to borrow a hammer.
This is just, can we say,
Oh
this
yes,
is from
say
a
the
book,
context.
The
Yeah.
Pursuit of Unhappiness. I was hoping you were going to say who it is, because I haven't got a clue how to
Well, I think
pronounce
it's
his
Wojciech.
name. Oh, there we go.
I
It's
think.
Paul Wojciech. And the book is all about, actually, it's a sort of help book, and it's really talks quite a lot about how we make things miserable quite often by allowing things to build up in us instead of tackling them.
Dwelling
and
on
becoming
negatives
positive.
often, isn't it?
Dwelling
Yeah,
on negatives, yes. Anyway,
This is
was an
what.
example.
Someone wants to borrow a hammer from his neighbour. He is sure his neighbour won't lend it. He works himself into a rage about the neighbour's unfriendliness and selfishness, runs to the neighbour's door, knocks and rings. When the neighbour opens the door, he says, "All right, just keep your damned hammer, you rude man."
I love that so much. I could just picture the neighbour who, remember, has not been involved with this inner dialogue at all.
Exactly,
Has
yeah.
no idea somebody wants to borrow a hammer, has no idea that this person has got themselves all worked up. Does that ring any bells in you?
Well, it has in one sense that only once or twice in my life have I really had a need for myself, actually more than anybody else, to forgive someone for something they've done. And I know that on the couple of times when I've tried to do something about that, I've rehearsed various things I might say or I might do, and very often they are self-serving, my rehearsals.
What do you mean exactly?
Well, because I think I'm going to get a very negative response, and so I'm really getting ready to say, "Well, you hurt me and you upset me, and it's your fault," even though my stated intention is to find some sort of reunion and peace about it. And I must say, the last time that happened, and I was really was worked up, and I was totally thwarted by the amazing fondness and love that I received. I mean, it wasn't what I wanted really. I wanted to smuggle in my hurt, but it actually It did pretty well get rid of it.
Well, of course.
Every now and then a little bit of it creeps back as it does, but no, that's right. Yeah.
Yes, I know I've had conversations like this. Sometimes if I think actually I'm in the wrong, and so I don't want to be in the wrong, and so I kind of put it onto the other person, imagining what they're going to say to me, so that I can then whatever. It is amazing what inner dialogue can do, isn't it? When you talk to yourself. And the dog has just appeared on the table with quite a lot to say. So if you hear her, she's got quite a lot to say as well.
She always has. Yeah. Well, some of you may have heard this thing before. There's a lot of talk in the church, there always has been, about what is God saying to you, what does God want you to do, and all that stuff. And because sadly the church runs on very straight lines.
Well, not always, Adrian.
Sorry, most of the time. Most of the time, the delightfully non-straight lines of the heart of the Church of Christ
happen to go straight.
Get straightened, and because of that, things go pale and they go wrong. And what that ends up doing is leaving you with a habit of what you think how God will respond to you. So this also happens in marriage, not ours, of course, but where, because you've been together perhaps quite a long time, you really are sure that you know what the other person is going to say. And this is an example of that.
I've been thinking.
Oh, right. Yes.
I have made a decision.
Right.
I'm going to stop work in September.
Well,
I know what you're going to say. How can we manage on one salary? Well, we've done it before. We'll do it again. We're far too extravagant anyway. It'll do us good.
I'm not sure that it's
Don't you start trotting out your line about how would you cope without holidays and little treats.
Oh,
in fact, you saying that really infuriates me, because you are virtually calling me a simple-minded bimbo, which, for your information, I certainly am not.
I never knew
Don't
phrases
like
me
I've got some secret reason for stopping work, because I haven't. Frankly, I take exception to your view of me as a devious, self-seeking female.
I do not think of you as a devious, self-seeking
don't try
female.
And smooth
not
me
the
over.
way.
You can't call someone a neurotic simpleton and then make it all right with a few glib phrases.
I haven't.
No doubt you'll claim you didn't mean it. Well, if
say
you
it.
didn't mean it, you shouldn't have said it.
I didn't.
I mean, how would you feel if you'd come to me with a carefully thought through plan and had it steamrolled all over? Because that's what you've done.
I have not done anything of this.
Don't insult my intelligence by denying it. I simply won't listen. You've had your say and now it's my turn. Or perhaps I don't get a turn. Well, I'm going to take a turn anyway. I've told you I want to stop work and you don't seem to hear me. Or rather, you did hear me. But all you can do is go on and on and on in your usual way about holidays and treats and me not coping. Negative as ever. You don't agree, so that's that. And you don't have to say any more at all, because I get the message. Well, all right then. All right then. I won't stop work. But just you bear in mind that it was you who bullied me into carrying on.
I didn't have a chance.
Oh, it's useless trying to backtrack now because it's too late. Keep slaving away. Those are your orders to the resident servant. Well, okay, I will. But I loathe you sometimes, and one of these days I'll find the words to tell you just how much, if I ever get a chance to get a word in edgeways, which is very unlikely, and I really...
I have had a chance to...
I am so sorry, but I don't want to hear any more. You may not have finished, but I have. I'm going out. Good night.
Oh, if only I'd kept my mouth shut.
Yeah, it's nothing to do with us ever, Adrian, really.
Well, I don't think we're quite as extreme as that.
No, maybe not. But I think it is so easy. And at the moment, we are living in a world where everyone seems to know what everybody else is saying and thinking. And as it changes every day, that makes it almost impossible to keep up, really. And there's not much real listening. And I suppose that's what this is about, isn't it? You can listen with your eyes. I mean, that's what the thing about the man on the bus conductor or bus driver. he saw it, didn't he? He saw what was happening with this woman trying to look after her 2 little boys. He saw it in a way, he heard it with his eyes, if you like. Yeah, quite interesting, really. Do you know what, Adrian? Somebody wrote to you just very recently talking about how amazing it was that some people, even in places like Gaza, Christians are still hanging on to their faith. And it's just coincidence that I came across this, because here's somebody who we all know living day by day in a terrifying situation. You'll know who it is at the end, but just listen to this. The best remedy for those who are afraid, lonely or unhappy is to go outside, somewhere where they can be quiet, alone with the heavens, nature and God, because only then does one feel that all is as it should be. And the person who said that was Anne Frank. And of course, it wasn't going to last for her. But what a little wise thing, really.
You just want to say who she was for
I said it was Anne Frank.
Who may not have heard of Anne Frank. There might be some people.
Well, I think most people have heard of Anne Frank.
Oh, well, those of you who haven't, I'm afraid you'll have to live in...
She was the Dutch teenager who wrote her diary, the Diary of Anne Frank.
Right, yeah.
And she was, in fact, you can go to her house, can't you, in Amsterdam,
we did, didn't we?
Which we have done.
Yeah.
And you can see the false bookcase behind which was a tiny hiding area for Anne and her family, who were Jewish. And they were finally discovered. Whether they were betrayed, whether they were simply discovered, I don't know. But that really was the end of the story for Anne, wasn't it?
Never seen again, as far as we know.
No. But what a beautiful thing, really. Yeah. Because only then does one feel that all is as it should be.
I was thinking this week, I mentioned just now about all the way the straight lines get, the crooked lines get straightened, and the interesting changes and differences are ironed out, because it's much safer for people sometimes to feel they know where they're going and what they should be doing. One of the things that I'm sure a number of people have got incredibly bored with, as far as I'm concerned, is me quoting that Chesterton couplet, which goes, "There is a place apart beyond the solar ray where parallel straight lines can meet in an unofficial way." And I've talked about that a lot, but what I'd never done until this week was to think about the fact that my experience of what God does for what it's worth, and whether it is God or not, is that it is usually unofficial. It's not usually that you go and get the forms and you fill them in, and then you have to go and apply, and then you have to wait 3 weeks to find out what the answer's going to be. It's really interesting that things happen kind of sideways. And one of the other things that I'm very fond of is it's not, I can't call it a poem because it doesn't have the it's some verse about a dog who died, and on the day that the dog dies, there's a meeting in heaven about whether pets should be allowed into heaven.
Yeah, I know.
And all the angels say they won't be because they're not human, they don't have a soul, and therefore they won't be in there. God sits and says nothing, and eventually the meeting ends and God stands up and he says, well, time's getting on, so we'll finish. And going towards evening and the hillside's calling, and anyway, Buddy, that's the dog, Buddy needs a walk. And the point of it isn't that dogs go to heaven. It is that, as Julian of Norwich said so attractively to everyone over these hundreds of years, all things will be well, and all manner of things will be well. But they won't be made well in straight lines. They'll be made well in the most attractive, unlikely, unexpected, wonderful, uneven ways. We were also talking recently about John the Baptist, who didn't actually get rescued from his prison, but was allowed to know through the message that was sent to him that all was well with him ultimately. All was quite well.
Well, who knows what will have happened by next week. We certainly don't know. But we'd love to hear from you. again, any of those little moments, anything that's been triggered by this, any times when you've maybe got it into your head that you are absolutely sure what somebody is going to say, and they don't.
I think the things like the thing about the man going to tell his neighbour off for not lending him whatever it was. What was it? He was angry about his hammer. It's when people say something that is so much better than you anticipated it's so wonderful.
We all need to hear from each other at the moment, so do get in touch with us, and we'll talk to you again next week.